Hello and welcome to another episode of Pakistonomy. My name is Uzair Yunus, and again, we will be switching things up a bit. I know for the last few weeks we've been talking about doom and gloom, IMF, what's going to happen with the economy, but I think it's also important to look at other segments of society and other things that are happening in Pakistan, exciting things that are happening in Pakistan that have a long-term impact, not only in terms of growth, but inclusion, particularly inclusion around women and marginalized communities. So today we're going to be talking to Haaris Mahmood, who currently serves as the CEO of Universal Service Fund Pakistan. He has over 20 years of global experience, both on the public and private sector side, focusing on telecoms and the financial services sector. And really, this is an exciting conversation for me because as you've been listening to this podcast, we talk to startups and we talk to digital first fintechs and we talk to other people who intersect and interact with technology. And you've heard me say this before, that the technology sector is the best avenue for bottom up disruption for Pakistan's economy. But none of that happens without effective communications and technology infrastructure in the country. So Haaris is at the forefront of making that possible, down to the tehsil, down to the union council level. So we're going to be talking about that and what the Universal Service Fund is and what it does. So Haaris, thank you so much for taking out the time and welcome to Pakistonomy.
Thank you so much for having me over.
So I want to start with, you giving us a 30,000 foot level view of what the USF is, what do you and your organization do, and what really is the mission and the vision of this organization in terms of technology and telecommunications infrastructure, and really making internet for all a reality in Pakistan.
Okay. Universal Service Fund is a public sector company under Ministry of IT and Telecom. And under statutory requirement, it's being made as Section 42, which is not-for-profit company. And the main objective of the company is to bridge the digital divide. As all of us know that, technology has taken everyone by the storm, and the telecom sector has a phenomenal growth in the last couple of decades. But we have always seen there are still people who are left unconnected. And the major reason is that because commercially it's not viable to connect everyone. So for that, they have ITU has advised all the countries to establish a fund under different authorities or ministry. And in our case, in Pakistan, it's Ministry of IT and Telecom. So what we do is that we support all the telco companies who are operating in Pakistan to provide connectivity to rural, remote, and marginalized communities, because they will not go on their own as the financial or business case is not going to be viable for them to operate in that region. And obviously, we want to connect everyone in Pakistan with high-speed internet. That's the main objective of this fund.
And so tell us a bit more about like what the fund does at that level, right? Because I was reading up on it. There are smart villages, there are partnerships with private sector entities for remote learning and education and access to telehealth and things like that. What are the main programs that you are running, and what's really been the impact of that, both in terms of the private side of the partnerships, but then also getting fiber and fiber optic connectivity down to the grassroots level?
Okay. I'll start off with fiber because it's very close to my heart, and we feel that in Pakistan, we don't have enough fiber to support the ecosystem in terms of high-speed mobile broadband or even, fixed broadband, which we call as a meaningful connectivity. I'll just give you an example so you can relate to it. That in Pakistan, roughly 10% of towers are connected to fiber. The rest of all are connected to the microwave. And if you take an example of China, it's the opposite. 90% of the towers are connected with the fiber. In Malaysia, Indonesia, Bangladesh, India, all of them ranges from 40 to 60 and 65%. So we are far, far behind it. So when I took over as CEO, and we were in a growth phase in terms of rolling out and deployment high-speed mobile internet towers, we thought we are focusing on microwave, we're not focusing on fiber. So we ran a program in which we identified the whole Pakistan and figured out that how many union councils are in Pakistan. For example, we want to take it to the lowest level in terms of of the administrative part. So in Pakistan, there are roughly approximately over 6,000 union councils, and we figured out there roughly 1,800 union councils which have fiber connectivity, or they have a node from which they can connect the the rest of the area. So all these 1,800 union councils are those union councils which are part of the metropolitan city, big metro like Karachi, Lahore, Islamabad, Gujranwala, Sialkot, Faisalabad, so which where they do have basic connectivity. So, but what we wanted to do was that take it to the union councils of southern Balochistan or interior Sindh and southern Punjab and north. So we made a program so that we're going to connect every union council in Pakistan through fiber, obviously which requires over 4,000 plus union council and requires over approximately between 45,000 kilometer fiber. So we made a program for a 5-year plan and we launched it a year and a half ago. So we have launched approximately a program of over 10,000 kilometer fiber, out of which 4,000 kilometer fiber has been laid on the ground, covering approximately 800 union council, and the rest will be covered in the next 6 to 12 months. And then, we continue to do that in the next 3.5, 4 years. We try to complete that. Every union council will have a fiber node. And why do we want to do that? Not just only connecting the towers, but also connecting the education institute, hospitals, government offices, and all other private sector offices. So they can start working from home, or maybe they can have an access to connectivity which they don't have to come to the metropolitan city, and gives them convenience. That will also build an ecosystem which is going to promote marketplaces like e-commerce and other e-suite. Like for example, we have in every tehsil we've got THQ tehsil headquarter hospitals, and then basic health hospitals. And we have witnessed, and the data supports that a lot of people rush to hospitals, these small hospitals or big hospitals, even for small consultation, which can be done easily over the telephone or a video call, or even just by making a call. And data say that 70% of the consultation can be catered through the video call. And we don't have enough hospitals across Pakistan. We have got a lot of dense population, especially in certain metropolitan and also some rural areas of Pakistan that cannot support one tehsil headquarter hospital or basic health. So we have to give innovative solutions, which is telehealth is one of them. So to basically enable the telehealth, so we have to provide that infrastructure. That is when you and I talk about fiber and other microwave. That's going to help that business to grow, and also going to give experience to people so they can get connected through telephone or a video call, and they can get the consultation then. And the rest 30%, which needs critical in terms of attention from the doctors or the specialists, so they can focus on them, on saving their lives or saving them from any disability which can actually get them into trouble. Secondly, we're all aware that we've got millions of students or children out of school, and we don't have enough schools or teachers to cater them. So we have to come again with innovative solutions, like we can start with e-education, maybe one school that can bring all those children together and can connect them to the good primary or secondary school, that they can actually start giving exposure of what school is, in terms of maths, in terms of science, in terms of basic things. So they get interest, and we can see that people who are interested can actually start coming to schools and then can learn. So that's also another example that's going to help, and it's enabling people over there. And especially the COVID, that has pushed us and also made us realize that if we have a good internet connection, this e-education and e-health or telehealth, what we call, can work wonders. And then also, when we talk about e-commerce, people in COVID, people have started using a lot of marketplaces, getting delivery at home. And that also promotes small businesses, especially in the rural and remote area, because metropolitan cities cannot have all kind of businesses or cannot cater to all kind of people, because we've got a big population to cater. So we have to find this, and that can only be done if we've got a resilient and a very vibrant infrastructure that can support that. So that's what we are focusing on fiber to get that. And along with that, it's also important that we also promote, financial inclusion. That can also be done. If we have the infrastructure, because our formal economy is 350.
Before you go towards financial inclusion, which is what I want to talk to you about as well, just in terms of, you mentioned 6,000 union councils, getting into the grassroots is the priority. What do the economics of rolling out fiber in Pakistan look like, right? Because one of the things that a lot of people raise, like, this is not related to fiber, but I'll give you an example, is road connectivity. And when you talk to people about road connectivity, they're like, yeah, sadke bana ke kya hoga, right? And I have to explain to them that without farm to market roads, for example. A lot of Pakistanis that listen in are from Houston or have been to Houston, both within and outside Pakistan. And I always remind them that if you look at the roads outside of Houston, they're called FM 1200 or whatever, right? FM stands for farm to market. So without farm to market connectivity with those basic roads, you don't have commerce, you don't have inclusion, you don't have higher incomes. And the internet is the same. If you don't have fiber optics, all the things you described are not possible, right? So just give us a sense of like, what does it cost to achieve that vision, and what the broad ROI would look like in terms of the inclusion and economic growth that then funnels into the very grassroots levels of Pakistani society.
Okay. In the rural and remote areas, there's no business case. So there's no commercial case at this point of time because we call this as a digital highway. So we have to bring people or businesses into it to make it viable. But for initially, we have to do a lot of investment. It's not only capital intensive, but it's also labor intensive. And there are a lot of challenges in terms of deploying fiber because of the right-of-way issues, which the government has very seriously taken and have made a very comprehensive right-of-way policy to facilitate that. So if you talk about the specific ROIs, that's where Universal Service Fund comes and support those operators and give them subsidy to make it viable so they can provide that access to that. And, as you rightly said that, give an example of Houston that, you have to bring it farm to the market through the highways. And that's exactly what we mean here by providing connectivity either through fiber or microwave. I give you, a couple, I've got so many examples in terms of rural communities, which we've come across. I give you a very simple example in one of the Goats. Goats is a small village called in Sindh, interior Sindh, which is like 150 kilometers from Sakhar. When you provide connectivity over there, so this girl was innovative and she was smart. She made her Instagram account. And she started going to Sakhar and a little bit of big cities like Hyderabad and got some clothes, from the local designers and started selling through her own Instagram account to the villages across, that village or in a village which is nearby. And she started making some, economic impact in her and her family life as well. And that also translates into social impact in that neighborhood. And then later on, we figured out that she worked out so well that she started training other girls to do that. So some people started making food like home chefs and everything using that account. And that brought a very good social impact and economic impact in that neighborhood. Then we later on realized that she also contributed to the household income by sending a younger brother to Sakhar for vocational college. Otherwise, she would not have that kind of income. She would have not been able to do that. And she actually eliminated the middleman, who's going to bring the clothes and, going to charge differently to the consumer and buy differently at different price. Then another very good example I want to share is about Chitral, which is a very high literacy rate, one of the highest literacy rate districts in Pakistan. And they're very well known for handicrafts. So, when they used to make handicrafts, people would come from, different parts of the world and would pay them very minimal amount for their service or their labor and sell it for very cheap. So middleman would actually make them best out of it. And would never get actually the real labor or the wage to that person who's actually making it. So when we provided connectivity to Chitral and we made a program with Facebook called She Means Business, in which we trained the entrepreneurs how they can marketplace their products through Facebook. And she started doing it. And she was actually getting the real the amount what she actually deserved. And how she's getting money is that through financial inclusion because of the mobile wallets, which has been done by Easy Paisa and JazzCash. Because the connectivity gave them that edge that they not only they can market the place, but they can actually get the money which they actually deserve. They gets the order from either Peshawar or Islam or somewhere else. So that's why they play a very critical role. And until else we don't build that a digital highway, which we call, and which I very strong advocate about it, is that we will not be able to get the financial inclusion, also in terms of the women empowerment. Because that's what they actually get the support and something which they can do things from their homes, from their social class, if we don't let them do things. And connectivity gives them that kind of a leverage that they can do it by sitting home and can impact socially and economically, not to themselves, also to the families and the neighborhood.
So following up on that, right? I mean, you get access to telehealth, online education, commerce, and that's really transformative. One of the markets I really look at right across the border is India in terms of their digital acceleration and the digitization that's happened. I was recently there, and you would see like panwalas accepting QR codes, right? But none of that happens without that infrastructure that we're talking about here. But an interesting thing that happened over there also was that you had companies like Flipkart that were, really began as a mobile phone online shop, basically, right? They were giving cell phones to the entire country online. But then Geo Reliance stepped in and really transformed the 4G landscape over there. Where does the private sector, in your view, in Pakistan come in terms of really transforming the country's digital journey the way the Indian companies have? And what are some barriers that you see across that ecosystem that perhaps, if they were tackled bit by bit, accelerate this whole transformation that you're talking about in Sindh, in Chitral, and other parts of Pakistan? How do we make that exponential and take it to the next level? Like, what needs to happen in this ecosystem?
You touched a very important point, which, to be honest, which is very close to mine. And sometimes I feel like, that there's not a single big, large telco operator partner which is owned by any Pakistani. All of them are international operators. That's where they make a big difference when you compare with India and Pakistan. I wish if we had one of the big business conglomerate or big empire, owning one of the telcos, things would have been different. Because obviously, when you have the interest, which is the local interest of an entrepreneur living in Pakistan, working for Pakistan, would have a different impact. At this point of time, all the four operators have an international shareholding, and their more interest is obviously return on equity, shareholder values, and everything. And that's where they cannot have that kind of influence on the government in terms of policies as well, which can be more beneficial for them. Because whenever the management comes for a certain period of time, and they have a certain stake, not as the shareholder stake, as someone who can actually own it. And that's where actually India has transformed it. Unfortunately, in Pakistan, it's a deregulated sector and it's run by the private sector. And we missed the boat initially because 3G auction took place in India in mid 2000s. And in our, it happened in 2014. So we missed almost 8 years.
If I may interrupt you again, it's that part is especially close to my heart, that whole saga, because I had graduated undergrad in 2010. And at that point in time, I was looking, I was in Boston studying, and I'd come to Pakistan and had sort of followed through my friends in India and other parts of the world through undergrad what was going on in terms of digital technologies. And we had thought, we'll start like a direct-to-consumer startup, and expecting the 3G rollout to really be as fast as what was going on across the border. But it never happened. So in 6 months' time, we were just like, look, the uptake is really not the same. And that really, again, to connect to your point, not only set back the digitization journey, but really the startup ecosystem journey that we talk about now could have been started 10 years ago, if that rollout had happened in that same way.
Yeah. So absolutely, I totally agree. And that's where we missed, like 7-8 years, and we have to catch up on that. But to be honest, in the last 4 or 5 years, there's been a phenomenal growth on the telecom side in terms of the number of subscribers, number of things have been happening and COVID has actually pushed it. I'll just give you a simple example of, Universal Service Fund. From 2006 to 19, we did maybe 60 projects over 60 billion. And from 2019 to date, we have done over 60 projects over 80 billion rupees. That's the growth has come in from the Universal Service Fund perspective. And that's also happened in the telecom sector as well. Because initially, the focus was just only on the metropolitan, and the demands were never looked at. And that's why we also did a few projects like Smart Village and ICT for Girls to showcase that how the broadband connectivity can actually make your life very convenient, can support the e-suite business, and you can do a lot of transparency, convenience, and things can be done by sitting at home. So our recent project, which is our I would say a pilot project done in Gukina, which is 25 kilometers from Islamabad, the village, where access is not easy. You can't just go in a car and do it. So we wanted to have an e-health and e-education and a whole of a government approach. So then what I did is that I also requested Nadra, our chairman, to come and power us they can provide the local service over there as well. So they don't have to come all the way to Islamabad for birth certificate, that for small little things, or even for registration. And then important thing which I felt that was missing was that we need to have a gender expert, so can actually analyze what's happening in that village and how the gender can be streamlined in the nation. And to surprise, once we launched it, within 4 weeks, our telehealth has 70% of patients which were for men and girls. And they said that if they would have not have that telehealth, they might have not addressed those issues. And even in e-education, we felt that after grade 7, there is no science subjects being taught at that school. So through our education platform, which is Tele-Talimat Partner, they started introducing STEM, which is like, start teaching science, maths. And in 3 weeks, we have registered over 100 students in small village. How impactful it is. And now I don't want to stop it here. What I'm trying to do is that I'm going to bring daras, I'm to bring jazz and food panda into it. So that's how we get see there's option of marketplace and entrepreneurship in that building, like home chefs. So daras or can train them in case of any marketplace, and food panda can use home chefs for the neighborhood only, so they can have an economic prospect in the house where in Pakistan our culture, women and girls make very good food and they can actually start selling it. So that's what we intend to do there. So we have to bring the ecosystem together in which the whole value chain is being contributed.
And again, since that's digitized, we get away from the whole documentation side of the stick approach as well, which again is something I frequently talk about, is that, the stick has clearly not worked in terms of documentation of economic flows in Pakistan. The informal economy is large, but digital payments, digital infrastructure automatically documents everything, and it's frictionless. So it's right there, right? If you're doing home chefs through Food Panda, you can get at the pin code level the flows of the economic transactions that are occurring and get a sense of what the actual economic value being created in a union council, in a village or whatever is. And I think that's, again, an important thing to think about. One thing that I wanted to get a sense from you was, you do this pilot in the village, you do something in Chitral, you do something in Sindh. You're filling an institutional void, and through the pilot, sort of doing the proof of concept, right? That this works, this has impact. How does that impact, as measured in terms of its success, then translate into, let's say, national level policy or national level shifts that then catalyze things at scale, right? Because again, one of the things that I often think about, and would love your thoughts on this as well, is that going from proof of concept to scale is really where the magic happens. And was curious to hear about how do you then translate something as successful as this program outside a village in Islamabad to a policy framework that enables that type of e-services and digital revolution across the country. How do we get there?
Okay. As far as the impact is concerned, because when we have different analysis being conducted, and different partners who are doing it, and the impact is amazing. But I'm not more worried about the impact, because it will have an impact. More thing which is more interest of in something which I need to pay attention is sustainability, because that is something which is more important for me, that it becomes sustainable. It doesn't fall flat after a few months or a few weeks. So for that, what we have done is that we have engaged the local champions over there. So we have made local champions or kind of a local owners over there. So we're going to take the ownership of this program by themselves. So community has to be engaged from day one. Before we launched it, we created an awareness what we want to do. We had some resistance, we had some challenges, but once we told them, okay, what will it have an impact, how it's going to help you, it's going to benefit you, your children, we got their buying in. That is something more important for them. And that's what we're going to do in our 2-3 more pilot projects we're going to do in the next couple of months. And then from there, we're going to have an impact and put it in a paper which is going to be translated into a policy where it can be done at a national level. It can be done in hundreds of them. But again, I said the most important for me is sustainability. So for me, because even if I don't do any impact study, because I know people are using telehealth, they're getting benefit out of it. People are using e-education, they're going to anyways going to benefit. And another thing which I want to do is the digital literacy training over there. So actually, I can train people, how digital literate you can be and how can you take benefit out of that. There's one angle which is missing, which I'm working out, is on the affordability of smartphones. Unfortunately, in Pakistan, they are slightly expensive because of a foreign currency conversion and some taxes. And we have not been able to manufacture smartphones for a very long time. We've started it, but still it's it's assembling, not actually manufacturing. Still have an impact of foreign currency. So that's what we're working with small microfinance banks and see if we can lend to the local entrepreneurs and see that can actually help them in getting a smart, because this in the whole value chain, this something is missing which I'm working on it. So I'll have three, four, or maybe five pilots across Pakistan in different regions. And then obviously we will have an impact in terms of the gender, in terms of the services, and also in terms of sustainability. And then, I would like to, bring it to paper and, present it to the private sector and also to the government. And then, from take it there to the national level, so where it can be rolled out, maybe at a regional level, or it's because, in smartphone, it's going to be different. For example, now we're thinking of going somewhere in Chitral. We want to put e-agriculture over there because that's important over there. We are also thinking of going to interior Sindh, where again agriculture is going to be important. So it's also going to be depending on the regional demographics of that area, which is going to help them in terms of which is more beneficial to them, or it's going to be catered or tailor-made according to them. So we'll have 4 or 5 different, and you will see how it works out. And from there, we're going to take it to, inshallah, put in the paper and make it in the policy level. We'll not leave it just to the government. We want the public sector to come and play the role with the community over there.
Yeah, and I think that's fascinating. And I would underscore your point on accessibility of smartphones, right? Particularly in rural parts of the country where agriculture, again, just as a high-level case study, right? If you have access to cheap smartphones, then all of a sudden things like shifting weather patterns, the ongoing price of your produce, what do you need to do in planting season, what kind of fertilizer do you use, all sorts of education and information asymmetries go away. Which then has an impact on things like yields in terms of farmer incomes, in terms of access to credit.
Yeah.
And all of those things are, again, given where we are at this point in time with food inflation and food insecurity, those are real solutions, right? In terms of getting the yields up, getting farmers more money in their pockets so then they can invest more in the land that they grow stuff on. And again, I agree with you. None of that is possible without telecoms infrastructure and access to cheap smartphones. One of the last questions I had for you was...
Sorry, that's why I call telecom as mother of all sectors.
Yeah, and nothing works without that, right? It's like roads and telecoms. If you connect people with those two things, good things happen without any intervention from the government, right? Human beings will find their way. And that's what we need to invest in. One of the last questions I had for you was, you said that USF has really scaled up its impact, its projects, its the amount of funding it's deploying. Where do you see things in Pakistan's telecommunications sector going in the next 3 to 5 years, right? And I asked this question because one of the most common questions or feedback that I get through this podcast is like, look, we want to be on platforms like Upwork and Fiverr and be freelancers because it's a good way to earn a solid income in foreign currency, earn export revenue, but then also kind of be your own boss. And some of these folks have then, started as their own boss, hired 3, 4, 5 more people. Now it's 25, and now they're graphic editors and designers and content creators and all. It's a whole economy. So I'm curious to help them understand where this sector goes, driven by the telecoms infrastructure, so that they can also think a bit more deeply about the kinds of technology-enabled businesses that they should be looking at and investing in. Where do you see this ecosystem going?
I'm very positive and optimistic that telecom sector is going to grow phenomenally, even from here, which has grown phenomenally in the last 5 years. Because if we talk about number, we have approximately 230 million population. And, right now we have, smartphone, mobile smartphone subscriber, or we call 3G, 4G subscriber, roughly 150 million. So you've got still 115, sorry. So you've got still big number to, catch up in terms of it. And, the way the technology is evolving, we're gonna convert from 4G to 5G. We're gonna evolve into 5.5 and then 6G in the next 3 to 5 years. If not 6G, then it definitely 5G. So the ecosystem is going to support it. When you talk about the startups and the freelancers and everything, Pakistan stands in amazing in terms of numbers. Like we are the fourth largest population in terms of the youth, so which is from 18 to 35 to 65%. And if you took a look at the global average age right now, Europe or Japan or China or North America, it's over 45. So we are at 21. So the only competition we have is from India, which is 27. So what all we have to be prepared is to the future skill set, how we built it to our youth, and what is going to be the requirement of the world. So if we work towards it, so I think the Fiverr and the freelancing, we just will leave them behind. We're going to be looking at much more viable and much more something which is going to be forthcoming and much more I would say more in demand rather than these Fiverr and everything. Because anyways, at the end of the world needs expertise and skill set, and that's going to come from this region. So I think we just have to give direction to the youth and be ready for that time, and we have the right skill set to actually cater to the world demand.
Yeah, and I think it's a huge opportunity. And I think as you were talking about connecting villages and then that allowing women to be more entrepreneurial, I think that holds true particularly in the technology sectors because, the cultural taboo of going out of your home to do work goes away once you have access to decent internet. We're talking on Zoom basically at no cost because of modern technology. And that's a really powerful tool, right? Our conversation would not have been possible without that. And that's an opportunity for millions of people that are yet to be connected to fiber in Pakistan. So I'm really excited about the mission that you have and the work that you and your team are doing. It's wonderful. And I wish you all the best. But before I let you go, the one last question I ask my guests is, what are 2 or 3 things that you would recommend folks to pick up and read?
To be honest, I wouldn't recommend any one book or 2 book or 3 book. I would recommend just do reading. Like reading is important. That gives you a different kind of perspective, and that especially in these kind of environment where we are so much glued to our smartphones and iPads and the laptops, we are missing out that the hand-felt reading of book. And for that, to be honest, you just it's also very very close to my heart that what we have done at USF is that we have started a knowledge hub. So what we did is we made a small library in the office, and it's not funded by anything. Everyone, whoever has got some few books, we've just put it in there, and we've asked everyone to whoever wants it, just come take it, read it, and bring that habit into your lives again. So I think I would suggest to any book or something, any book makes sense. Any book which interests you, which can have some, give you a different perspective or add value to your life, I think one should go with that.
Well, thank you again for your time and for the wonderful work you're doing. I'm excited by everything that we've talked about that's going on. And again, as I think both of us agree, technology access, cheap technology access is transformative. I think it's worth the investment. It's worth the effort. It's worth getting fiber to the last mile of people. And that's the way to transform this country. So thank you for all your work and the work that your team is doing. And thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me over. Thank you.